Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification.
The room was silent, save for the rhythmic, shallow breathing of the woman sleeping in the bed. Elias Thorne sat in the wingback chair in the corner. His silhouette merged with the shadows. He was not sleeping. Sleep had become a variable he could no longer calculate. Effectively, he watched Sarah. In the dim amber light filtering in from the street lamp outside, she looked innocent. Her hand was curled under her cheek. Her dark hair splayed across the pillowcase. To an untrained eye, this was a picture of domestic tranquility. To Elias, it was a data set that no longer added up. He glanced at the digital clock. 2:19. Elias was a forensic accountant. His life was built on the principle that numbers do not lie. But people do. He spent his days looking for missing assets in corporate mergers, finding the phantom withdrawals that signaled embezzlement. He was good at it because he was naturally suspicious. He noticed patterns. And for the past 4 weeks, the pattern of his marriage had shifted. It wasn't a loud shift. It was subtle. Like a decimal point, moved one space to the left. A shift in expenditure. A shift in time management. A shift in scent. He looked at her phone. Resting on the nightstand. Face down. Always face down now. That was variable A. "You're overthinking it, Elias," she had told him 3 days ago, when he asked why she locked the bathroom door to shower. "I just want some privacy." "Why are you always watching me?" Was he watching her? Or was he simply noticing? The line between observation and surveillance was thin. And tonight, sitting in the dark, Elias knew he had crossed it. He wasn't a jealous husband. He told himself. He was an auditor. And the books didn't balance. Log entry, 4 weeks prior. Retrospective analysis. Location, kitchen. The tension in the house had been palpable. A physical weight pressing down on their shoulders. Sarah had been unemployed for 6 months. The gallery where she worked as an assistant curator had closed down. A casualty of the economy. Elias made enough to cover the mortgage and the bills. But just barely. He was a man of strict budgets. He tracked every penny. Sarah hated it. She called it financial strangulation. She wanted to feel useful. She wanted her own money. That Tuesday, the atmosphere changed. Sarah had come through the front door at 5:30 in the afternoon. She wasn't dragging her feet. She wasn't wearing her usual expression of defeated exhaustion after a day of unanswered job applications. She was radiant. She tossed her purse onto the kitchen island. A purse that looked heavier than usual. "I got it," she said. Breathless. "Elias. I actually got it." Elias looked up from his laptop. "The position at the City Museum?" "No," Sarah said, shaking her head. Her smile widening. "Better. Do you remember Daniel? Daniel Vance?" Elias felt a small, cold spike in his chest. He tapped his pen against the table. "The trust fund kid from your art history program? The one who bought his way into the auction house? He's not a kid anymore, Elias. He's opened a private art consultancy firm. High-end clients. Corporate collections. He saw my LinkedIn profile. He reached out." She moved around the kitchen with an energy Elias hadn't seen in a year. She poured herself a glass of water. Her hands trembling slightly. "He needs a senior curator to manage the new acquisitions," she continued. "He offered me the job on the spot. Full benefits. A salary that, well, it's almost double what I was making before." Elias stopped tapping his pen. "Double. That was a significant deviation." "That is generous," he said, keeping his voice neutral. "For a startup." "It's not a startup. It's a boutique firm." Sarah corrected him sharply. She walked over and wrapped her arms around his neck. He smelled her. She smelled like rain. And stale coffee. Familiar, safe. "Be happy for me, Elias. Please. This changes everything. We can fix the car. We can finally take a vacation." "I am happy," Elias said. He tried to smile. "It's just Daniel Vance. You haven't spoken to him in 5 years. So that's how networking works." She pulled back. Her eyes narrowing slightly. Don't do this. Don't let your insecurity ruin my moment. Insecurity. The word hung in the air. Elias nodded slowly. You're right. Congratulations. Sarah. Later that night. They celebrated with takeout. Sarah talked about the office space. A sleek building downtown. She talked about the responsibilities. She talked about proving herself. Elias listened, filing away every detail. He wanted to believe her. It was logical to want to believe your wife. But as he watched her sleep that night, he couldn't help but remember Daniel Vance. He remembered a party. 6 years ago. He remembered the way Daniel had looked at Sarah. Like she was a piece of art he hadn't yet acquired. Elias pushed the thought away. Paranoia was not evidence. The transformation was absolute. For the past month, Sarah had become a different woman. The Sarah who slept until 10 and spent the day in yoga pants was gone. In her place was a woman who rose at 6. Elias stood by the bedroom door, watching her get ready. She sat at her vanity, applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon. Foundation, contour, eyeliner. It was heavier than she used to wear. More dramatic. Big meeting today? Elias asked. He was leaning against the doorframe, holding a mug of black coffee. Sarah met his eyes in the mirror. She didn't smile. Every day is a big meeting, Elias. Daniel expects perfection. The clients we deal with, they notice everything. Daniel, Elias repeated. You mention him a lot. He's my boss. She stood up and smoothed down her skirt. It was new. A black pencil skirt that hugged her hips, paired with a silk blouse. Is that new? Elias asked, gesturing to the blouse. I picked it up on sale, she said quickly. Too quickly. You have to spend money to look the part, Elias. I'll pay it off with my first bonus. She walked past him, grabbing her coat. A wave of scent hit him. It wasn't her usual floral spray. It was musky, deep, expensive. Like sandalwood and amber. New perfume? A client gift, she threw over her shoulder. Samples from a luxury brand launch were handling. I have to run. I'll be late. When will you be home? Late. Probably 9. We have a gallery opening to prep for. She kissed him on the cheek. It was a dry, perfunctory peck. Then she was gone. Elias listened to the sound of her car engine fading down the street. He walked to the window and watched the empty road. 9 o'clock. For the last 2 weeks. She had come home after 9 every single night. She claimed the workload was immense. She claimed the company culture was demanding, but rewarding. Elias went to the bathroom. The air still held the scent of that perfume. He looked at the bottle on the counter. It wasn't a sample vial. It was a full-sized bottle of Le Labo. He checked the price on his phone. $300. On sale, he whispered to the empty room. He opened his banking app. He scrolled through the joint account. Groceries. Gas. Utilities. There were no deposits. It had been 4 weeks. Payroll issues, Sarah had said yesterday when he brought it up. They're switching accounting software. It'll all come in a lump sum next week. As a forensic accountant, Elias knew that payroll issues in a new company usually meant one of 2 things, bankruptcy or fraud. But there was a third option. One he hadn't wanted to consider until now. There was no payroll. Because there was no job, Elias decided to execute a field audit. He told his own firm he had a dentist appointment. He left his office at noon. He drove to the address Sarah had forwarded him weeks ago. The location of Vance Art Consultancy. It was a glass monolith in the financial district. Impressive. Intimidating. Exactly the kind of place Daniel Vance would operate. Elias parked his car 2 blocks away and walked. He stopped at a florist and bought a bouquet of white lilies. Sarah's favorite. It was a prop. A loving husband surprising his hard-working wife with flowers. If he was wrong. If he was just a paranoid, jealous wreck. Then this would be a sweet gesture. He would give her the flowers. They would laugh. And he would schedule an appointment with a therapist. He prayed he would need a therapist. He walked into the lobby. It was vast. Smelling of polished marble and ozone. He approached the security desk. A young woman in a sharp blazer looked up. "Good afternoon," Elias said, putting on his best charming husband smile. It felt like a mask of dried clay on his face. "I'm here to see my wife. Sarah Thorne. She works for Vance Art Consultancy." The receptionist smiled back. "Of course. Let me look that up for you." Her fingers danced across the keyboard. Elias gripped the stems of the lilies so hard the plastic wrapper crinkled loudly. The typing stopped. The receptionist frowned. She hit backspace. Typed again. "Vance Art Consultancy?" she asked. "Yes. Daniel Vance. They moved in about a month ago." The receptionist shook her head slowly. The professional smile dropped. Replaced by confusion. "Sir. I don't have a tenant by that name. We have Vance Logistics on the 14th floor, but no art consultancy." The world tilted slightly to the left. Elias felt the blood drain from his face, pooling in his feet. "Are you sure? Sarah Thorne. She's the senior curator. I can search by employee name for the entire building," she offered kindly. She typed again. Silence. The longest 10 seconds of Elias's life. "I'm sorry," she said, looking at him with pity. "There is no one named Sarah Thorne working in this building. Is it possible she works at a different branch?" "Yes," Elias said. His voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from a tin can. "Yes. I must have confused the address. Thank you." He walked out. He didn't remember walking to the trash can on the corner. He dropped the lilies inside. They landed on top of a greasy coffee cup. He stood on the sidewalk. The noise of the city rushing around him. She wasn't there. She had never been there. The new clothes. The early mornings. The exhaustion. The meetings. It was all a construct, a simulation. If she wasn't there, where was she? Elias took out his phone. He opened the Find My app. They had shared their locations years ago. For safety. He rarely checked it. He felt it was invasive. But the audit had begun. The little blue dot representing Sarah was not in the financial district. It was pulsing steadily on the north side of the city. In a residential area. Elias zoomed in. The dot was stationary. It was hovering over a building called the Meridian. He knew that building. It was a luxury condominium complex. He hailed a cab. He didn't want to drive. His hands were shaking too much to hold the wheel. Elias sat in a coffee shop across the street from the Meridian. He had his laptop open. He was working. He wasn't working on corporate accounts. He was working on Sarah. He logged into their cell phone provider's website. He pulled the call logs for the last month. He exported the data into a spreadsheet. He filtered by frequency. One number appeared 42 times. In the last month. Most calls were during the day. While she was at work. The duration varied. 2 minutes. 15 minutes. He ran a reverse lookup on the number. Owner, Daniel J. Vance. Elias looked out the window at the high-rise. He checked the GPS location again. She was still there. He began to construct the timeline. Monday to Friday, Sarah leaves the house at 7:30. 8:15, she arrives at the Meridian. 8:30, the blue dot stops moving. 5:30, the blue dot leaves the Meridian. 6 to 9, the blue dot moves to various locations. A coffee shop. A library. Sometimes just sitting in a park. Killing time. Waiting until it was late enough to come home and play the part of the exhausted executive. Elias felt a cold, hard rage settling in his stomach. It wasn't the heat of passion. It was the icy clarity of absolute betrayal. She wasn't just cheating. She was living a double life. She was waking up next to him, kissing him, dressing up for him, and then driving straight to another man's bed. She spent her days with Daniel. She spent her work hours playing house with him. And the money? Elias checked the credit card statements again. The new clothes. The perfume. The lunches. She was financing her affair. With their joint savings. He closed his laptop. He had enough evidence for a conviction. But he needed a confession. He waited. He watched the building. At 5:40. A silver Audi pulled out of the underground garage. Elias recognized the driver. It was Sarah. She was checking her makeup in the rearview mirror. She turned right, heading toward a bistro 3 blocks away. She would sit there for 3 hours. He realized. She would sit there, drink a glass of cheap wine, and wait until she could come home to lie to him. Elias didn't follow her. He went home. He had preparations to make. The house was dark. Elias had turned off all the lights. He sat on the sofa, illuminated only by the glow of the television screen, which was currently black. He heard the key in the lock. Sarah entered. She sighed loudly. A theatrical, heavy sigh meant to signal her grueling day. She dropped her keys in the bowl. Clink. Elias, she called out. Why are the lights off? Babe. She flicked the switch. The room flooded with light. Elias didn't blink. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap. On the coffee table in front of him, he had arranged the exhibits. Exhibit A. The printout of the building directory for the financial district office. No Vance Consultancy. Exhibit B. The printout of the GPS history showing the meridian. Exhibit C. The credit card statements highlighting the purchases. Exhibit D. A photo of the building directory for the meridian. Listing D. Vance in penthouse 4. Sarah stopped. She looked at Elias. Then she looked at the table. She froze. It was a fascinating physiological reaction. Elias noted. The blood actually drained from her face in real time. Her pupils dilated. How was work? Elias asked. His voice was conversational. Pleasant. Even. Sarah opened her mouth. Then closed it. She dropped her bag. Elias. What is this? I asked you a question, Sarah. How was work? Did you acquire any new masterpieces today? Did the marketing strategy meeting go well? She took a step back, her hand reaching for the doorframe. You went through my things? I went to your office today, Elias said. To bring you flowers. Sarah flinched as if he had thrown a stone at her. Imagine my surprise, Elias continued. Standing up slowly, when I discovered that you don't work there. In fact, you haven't worked a single day in your life for Vance Art Consultancy. Because it doesn't exist. Elias, stop. I can explain. Can you explain why you spend 8 hours a day? 5 days a week. At 2304 Skyline Avenue, Penthouse 4. Sarah began to cry. It wasn't a graceful cry. It was ugly. Sudden. And loud. It happened. I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't know how to tell me that you were unemployed? Or that you were sleeping with Daniel Vance? I wanted the job. She screamed, her voice cracking. I really did. I met him for lunch to talk about a position. But he didn't have a position, Elias. He had feelings. He said he'd missed me. He said he could take care of me. So you took the position in his bed instead, Elias said. The vulgarity of it tasted like ash in his mouth. It wasn't like that. We reconnected. And then it got out of hand. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right time. You bought clothes, Elias said, pointing to the credit card statement. You bought a $300 perfume. You created a schedule. You invented coworkers. You came home every night and complained about traffic. That isn't getting out of hand, Sarah. That is a calculated, systematic campaign of deception. I felt useless. She sobbed. You and your spreadsheets. You and your budgets. You make me feel like a child, Elias. Daniel made me feel valued. Valued, Elias repeated. He laughed. A short, dry bark. He made you feel valued while you spent my money to dress up for him? While you lied to my face for a month? He walked over to the table and picked up his phone. Daniel Vance is married. Isn't he? To that pediatric surgeon, Evelyn? Sarah's eyes went wide. Panic. Raw and terrified. Replaced the sorrow. Elias, don't. Please. Don't bring her into this. It has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with her, Elias said. She is part of the equation. Just like I was. He'll leave her, Sarah whispered. He told me. He's going to leave her. We love each other. Elias looked at his wife. He looked at the woman he had vowed to protect. And he saw nothing but a stranger in a stolen skirt. He won't leave her, Sarah. Men like Daniel don't leave their surgeon wives for unemployed assistants they hide in a condo. You are a recreational expense. You are a line item he can write off. Get out, Elias said. What? Get out of my house. Pack a bag. Go to Daniel. If he loves you so much, I'm sure he'll be happy to let you sleep in the penthouse. Elias, please. I have nowhere to go. My parents are in Ohio. That is not my problem. Your residency here has been terminated due to breach of contract. He walked to the door and held it open. The night air was cold. Sarah stood there for a long minute. Waiting for him to crack. Waiting for the Elias who loved her to surface and forgive her. But that Elias was gone. He had been redacted. She ran into the bedroom. Sobbing. 10 minutes later. She emerged with a duffel bag. Her mascara running in black streaks down her face. She looked at him one last time. You're a cold bastard, Elias, she spat. Yes, Elias agreed. I am. He shut the door behind her. He engaged the deadbolt. Then the chain. He went back to the living room. He didn't cry. He picked up the papers from the coffee table and shredded them. One by one. Then he sat down at his laptop. He had one more email to send. It had been 2 months. Elias sat by the window. Sipping a black Americano. The city was dressed for the holidays. Lights twinkled on the lampposts. He checked his watch. Across the street. The bus stopped. A woman stepped off. It was Sarah. She looked different. The expensive clothes were gone. She was wearing her old winter coat. The one with the missing button. She looked tired. Truly tired. Not the fake exhaustion she had performed for him. She was working at a retail store a few blocks away. Elias knew this because he kept tabs. Not out of love. But out of a need for closure. The fallout had been efficient. That night, Elias had found Evelyn Vance's contact information. He sent her a concise, polite email attached with a zip file. The file contained the GPS logs, the photos of the building registry, and the call records. Evelyn Vance was, as it turned out, a very effective woman. She didn't scream. She hired a shark of a divorce lawyer. Daniel Vance lost the condo. He lost half his liquidity. And, crucially, he lost his interest in Sarah the moment she became a liability rather than a secret. He ghosted her 3 days after Elias kicked her out. Sarah was living in a studio apartment on the edge of town. No gallery job. No rich boyfriend. Just the reality she had tried so hard to escape. Elias watched her cross the street. She stopped. Waiting for the light to change. She looked up and, for a split second, her eyes met his through the glass of the coffee shop window. She started to raise her hand. Her mouth opened. Perhaps to say his name. Elias didn't look away. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He simply observed her. She was a sunk cost. A bad investment that had been written off. He turned his head back to his laptop. He had a meeting with a new client in 20 minutes. A woman who ran a non-profit. She had a warm smile and honest eyes. He took a sip of his coffee. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.